All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another solutions webinar from the Solution Series. My name is Fernando, and I will be your webinar admin today. I just wanted to point out a few things before we get started. First of all, we do have a Q&A option, which will allow you to communicate any questions or any notes that you'd like to share with the presenter. And if you have any questions regarding any technical aspects of the webinar service, please use the chat option and address those questions to me. Also, I'd like to point out that at the end of the webinar, if you would like to access a recording of the webinar, will become available online, as well as a downloadable PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation that will be used today. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Rick Moakler, the Chief Quality Improvement Officer at the National Head Start Association, who will be speaking about the parent gauge today. Go ahead, Rick.
Super. Thank you, Fernando. I am delighted to be speaking to you all today. I know many of you from my days with the California Head Start Association, and it's great to be talking to you all today and to be sharing with you a tool that really we started developing back when I was still with CHSA, but now in my new role at the National Head Start Association, have the chance to be actually sort of leading the charge on this. By the way, you know, when we talk about this, my title is being Chief Quality Improvement Officer. What it really is looking for ways that we, the NHSA, can support the field in using their data more effectively to improve program quality and creating resources for you all. So that's what this tool is about, and it fits for those of you who were on the OHS kickoff webinar yesterday, where they were sharing the new monitoring system. You probably appreciate this whole conversation around using data to drive improvements in performance is very much in line with the kind of the direction of the performance standards in the new monitoring system. So today, what I am going to share with you is this new resource, and we'll spend about 35, 40 minutes going over it, including giving a little bit of background on how and why it was developed. Some of you actually on this call were probably some of the pilots that were involved, either in the early research or in the testing the instrument. And we're going to do, I'll walk you through a live demonstration of the software so you can get a feel for it. And then we'll just talk about how this is used in the cycle of a program year and just kind of practical parts of how you acquire the software and license and how you use it in your program. So that is the general kind of structure for this conversation. I welcome questions. If I see them when they come up, typing in during the presentation, and I'll address them during the presentation, and certainly we have time built in towards the end to be able to field any questions or comments that folks have. But let's start by just talking about why did NHSA get into the business of creating an assessment tool? This is something that we've never done before, and I don't know about all of you, but I distinctly remember several years ago, when OHS released the new PFCE framework, and I remember directors in California looking around, thinking, how are we going to do assessment to actually, how are we going to know that we're actually succeeding in meeting the objectives of the new PFC framework? And that was, in fact, I remember a couple of years ago, we actually, CHSA brought out Dr. Kathy Ayub, who's a principal investigator out of Harvard with one of the national centers, and we had to present, some of you may have been at this conference, present on a number of the different kinds of parent engagement assessment tools out there. And it was a great presentation. We got all the way through it, and we asked her, okay, which of these actually aligns or addresses all of the issues in the PFCE framework, and I remember saying none of them do. So that was really what inspired a number of directors, especially Region 5 directors, to approach the University of Chicago and see if they couldn't help us to develop our own assessment tool tailored to the Head Start community. And they did a little fundraising, raised some kind of significant grants, and NHSA chipped in and basically started doing the research and developed a tool which was piloted last year, and which we're delighted now has been validated as being a reliable instrument for for our work in Head Start, which we'll be walking through today. When NHSA approached the University of Chicago, we had several goals. First was to be able to easily assess parent-family engagement through parent report or interview. Secondly, it had to be aligned to the PFCE framework, all of the domains in the framework. And thirdly, it had to provide useful information, both to the staff doing the assessment work, to the family service workers and teachers, just in the course of the interview. That had to be a valued interview, but it to be able to provide ongoing information that would help you determine progress and help a program determine if it was being effective and where there were opportunities to strengthen and so forth. The requirements that we set up at that time is that it had to support multiple languages, which it does. We have 4 languages already. It had to be cloud-based so that it would be accessible to not only computers, but to tablets and phones. And it had to be able to be pretty efficient so that a staff could conduct an interview in 15 or 20 minutes with immediately useful information, but with then easy to aggregate reports. And that's one of the cool things about this tool, is that it's useful not just to the line staff, but it can be rolled up easily to the center level and to the program level. And then if needed, or if there was the desire, it can be rolled up as well to the state, regional, and even the national level. Now, whenever you go beyond the program level, the data is held private. The identifying data is private, so it's anonymous, but it's still really useful. So for example, if the Region 9 Association wanted to facilitate a user group or a community of practice around PFCE, you'd have some great information to do that with. The instrument is developed of closed-ended and open-ended questions. The exact number vary based on how some of the questions are answered. So, we have somewhat different questions for early Head Start than for Head Start, and then if a child has disabilities, I mean, it's a smart instrument, so it'll go. But that's kind of the ballpark for the number of questions that we have. Wanted to give you a little background. In this whole new world of monitoring and expectations around evidence-based tools and validated tools, just what went into this. We actually, and we had California, I know in Region 9 programs that were Arizona programs specifically, that were all part of the initial research and piloting, a total of 147 grantees. Initially, there was a kind of a randomized sample, and then additional programs came in for the piloting. So all 12 regions across the country, we had 1,000 parent interviews as part of this research process, and we learned a lot. It was useful not only in developing the instrument, but it was really useful in just pulling out themes that we could key into that were important to parents. And one of the issues in any kind of research is wanting to make sure that the questions you're asking are the right questions and are the most relevant to the community, the population of people that you're addressing, you're serving. And one of the cool things about this instrument, those folks who were part of the research will remember this, is that we were actually using not just some really smart researchers, but we were actually able to engage artificial intelligence. That is, taking digitized transcripts of interviews and using what's called natural language processing. So you actually had machine learning where the AI, we were pulling themes out of the interviews, and then that complemented the themes the researchers identified, all of which were built into shaping the final assessment tool. But one of the kind of overriding insights, which I wanted just to note, was that when we asked parents what they perceived as the strongest immediate program value for them as parents, it was what they said was what they were learning about their child's development. I mean, it was interesting to us because it wasn't necessarily assistance around job, employment, or education, or goal setting, or what have you, but it was what they were learning about child development. All, I mean, really relevant stuff for PFCE. So after having developed this and piloted this, this is getting a little bit on the kind of geeky wonky side, but again, we're getting this question from programs, so I wanted to share it. Is the reliability scale, and so this is where our psychometricians at the University of Chicago were really helpful. They, basically, when you're grading reliability, an alpha score, anything over 0.50 is considered good. Anything up to, say, around 0.90 is considered really good. And we were real pleased that you see here on the two scales that we were factors that we were checking reliability, both of the parent-related questions around the parent's own engagement with the child, and then the program scale where we were looking at the parent's assessment of how helpful and useful the program was. The reliability of those answers was gauged to be quite high. Another question that comes up in any kind of software these days is privacy. And so just to assure folks, this was developed in full compliance with the federal standards, encryption standards. We have several levels of control on the instrument so that you have a program administrator on the kind of the senior grantee level who then offers controls to people on the center level, and then who in turn offer access to the line staff that are actually conducting the interviews. So that allows for our program to really be in control of the privacy settings and to determine what's shared and what's not. So before I get into the demo, just wanted to review. I just spoke about those three distinct roles within an agency using ParentGauge. Another nice feature as you're getting started is that the software does allow you to import your roster from Child Plus. So all the demographic information just can get kind of imported automatically, and Promise as well. And we're working on additional the kind of MIS information system software for import. You can also manually input information, the client information as well. The software allows the ability to record interviews and has multiple languages, as we've mentioned. So at this point, I'm going to pull in I'm going right into the software itself. And so wanted to just kind of walk you through a demo of just some of the basics, just to give you kind of a sense of the look and feel of what it's like using this. So right now we're on the home screen for the ParentGauge website, and I'm just going to click through a few of the tabs here on the main menu. The nice thing is, first we'll start with the guide tab. So this basically is all you really need to know if you're using the software. It has everything from the FAQs to information on creating interviews, recording, and so forth. But I mention this because we actually provide training at regular intervals for new users on this through kind of a webinar and conference call setup. But we're finding that our support and kind of guidance is clear enough that a lot of folks are able to just use the information right here in our online guide. Wanted to go, I'm going to skip to the management tab just to give you a sense of what the options are. There's basically, you can manage, this software is holding all kinds of interviews that, have been conducted, and that is organized several different ways. So you can pull up interviews that have been conducted. By the way, this is, the researchers referred to this as dummy data. When I first started working with them, I thought they were talking about me when they were talking about dummy data, but I realized they were just talking about made up data. I wasn't the dummy, but we've got here just, some examples of interviews, and organized this way by the interviews themselves, but you can pull them up by staff that would have conducted the interviews, or by the children or the guardians. So there's lots of ways if you want to go back and organize or pull something up. So that's just how it's kind of managed and organized. I would like to take us now to the tab on starting an interview. So you have, say, whoever, family service staff member, teacher, whoever it is who will be conducting an interview, and it's pretty easy. So if you want to, let's just say we're creating an interview here, and you've already, in your database, say you've already imported, say, from Child Plus. So you're pulling Christina Marshall's name from the Guardian, and then we're going to have a student, that's Alexis, and we're going to conduct this interview in person, which is typically how it's done. And then it'll be in English. So that's all you need basically to start the interview process. And we submit that, and then boom, you're ready to go into interview mode. And so you're given the option. You can of how do you want to handle the recording. You can record it right off your device, or you can just upload a taped interview. You'll see here in this text, there's really nice scripting, and this took several revisions. We actually had 2 advisory committees that helped us develop this whole software. One was this expert advisory panel of some kind of academic hotshots who really were concerned about kind of research and validity issues, and then we had more of a practitioner advisory panel with folks in the field that were really guiding the development of this instrument and really making sure that the language was user-friendly and would make sense in a program setting. So you can see you've got nice scripting, nice text, guidance on the questions, how to ask questions. We start with an open-ended question typically, and then you can fill in the response. And then we go into some of the closed-ended questions. There's prompts for some of these as needed. The closed-ended questions all are on this kind of a Likert scale, so ranging from not at all to very much. That was a scale that took some refining over time, but it allows programs to really kind of get some nuance between the kind of the closed-ended questions and then the more qualitative questions. So that's, we could go into more detail on this, but I just wanted to give you a feel for the interview, and then you just click through the screens, the person doing it. But finally wanted to go into the we should go into the reports now. And I'll go into a growth report. So once your staff have conducted a number of interviews, or just one staff wants to go in and look at interviews they've already conducted, you can pull them up. This is right here is a batch of a bunch of interviews from one particular center, and you can see by the scales here that they're organized in a couple of ways. The instrument was designed to be used both at mid-year, say December, January, and then end of year. And then, so we've got here with the mid scales, is both rankings by how the parents engage, sort of assess their own engagement with their child, and then how they assess the program quality. And we see that both mid and end of year. It's broken out individually by particular questions here. So you can see, and by the way, I mean, I could show you a report just for the mid-year scores if you want. And these are all developed in a way that you get immediate feedback. The person who's asking the questions, if something is challenging, it'll come up in red. That means kind of a lower score that raises some concerns, or something's a real strength, it'll come up in green. And then there's a neutral zone. But you can see, so that's, you'll get that scoring immediately in the mid-year. But then after the second set of interviews, you'll also get changes. So these arrows are just a quick, helpful read for either the staff or the administrators in the program to be able to see the progress over the course of the year, which again, I mean, we know from yesterday about the new monitoring system. That's what OHS is asking for, is what the progress we're going to see over the course of a year and over multiple years, because these filters allow us actually to work longitudinally over multiple years. The other thing, just while we're in this screen, wanted to point out to you all is that these questions are generally organized in couplets. So you look here and you see 1A and 1B. So 1A is, I participate in activities that have helped me get my child ready for school. So it's really the parent ranking their own engagement. And the other one is that the program has helped me to this end. So that gives you a sense. This is one of the unique things about this tool, is that oftentimes these assessments only address one or the other, and we're, by these couplet kinds of questions, we're doing both. So anyway, I mean, that's a quick overview on the instrument. We can certainly come back to this. At this point, I am going to just go back to our slideshow. I have a few more slides. I want to kind of walk you through about the instrument, and then we can open up to some questions and answers. Just to be clear, I wanted to walk you through the implementation cycle over the course of a school year, and with the caveat that this is organized. I mean, this calendar is for programs following the traditional school year. If you had, if you were a program that was doing a full year program and you wanted to put it on a different cycle, or migrant seasonal program on a different cycle, you absolutely would have the flexibility to be able to do that. So there's nothing mandated about these times. But for many programs, basically, let's start. You're going to start in the fall. There'll be some minimal staff training. I wouldn't train staff too far in advance of administering the tool. It's because it's really pretty easy. You have the option, if you want, of administering a baseline survey at the beginning of the year. So anyone who's subscribing right now, you could do that, and then you'd have two other comparison points in mid-year and end of year. The baseline survey is set up with about half the questions. So we only are surveying the parents with a baseline instrument about those questions where we're asking about the engagement of the child. We don't, in that baseline, ask about how supportive or effective the program has been, because it's kind of too early to ask that. Then we go into winter. That's the mid-year. That allows for some immediate kind of response and adjustment. And we saw that even in the piloting. We saw programs that issues were coming up in the course of those interviews that flagged the program to be able to step in and take some corrective action and supportive action to support their families. Then, going to spring, the end of year interviews, and that's really your chance as a program to be assessing, what's working, where are points, areas where we can improve as a program, and start planning for the next year. That's the general time frame. All right, so subscriptions. So this is one of the things that we're really happy with, is because we were able to secure some outside grant funding to underwrite a lot of the research and development. We're able to keep the licensing and subscription costs down lower than many other assessments. So the base usage fee is $1,500, and then plus there's a $3 per family fee. So just to be clear, say your program serves about 300 children, and you'll be administering the instrument for those families. That would be 3 times 300. That would be $900, and then 900 plus 1,500. So the total would be $2,400 for the year. All of you that are NHSA members are eligible for a 15% discount. So that would take the cost down to about $2,000 for the year. The one exception to this is very small programs, that is with fewer than 100 children, actually qualify for a discounted $800 base usage fee. So a couple of questions, things to come up is that this pricing is all inclusive. So there's no additional charge for training. There's no additional charge to get your fee to get your data out or anything. It's all inclusive. The other point is that if you are a grantee with delegate agencies, you only pay one base usage fee. You're not paying additional base usage fees for additional delegates. All righty. What that pays for is, and we're really pleased to be able to maintain NORC. NORC is the center at the University of Chicago. It stands for like the National Opinion Research Center. So they're supporting us in our training for staff. They're actually staffing an assistance line, and they'll be supporting our data analytics work. We also brought in a software manager who specializes in education products, and Kate is going to be supporting our user groups and really working closely with that feedback to make sure that we're continuing to add improvements and refinements to this thing. So this will be a live tool that will continue to I think build out over time. Ordering is pretty straightforward. It's just going to our website. You see the link here. All it takes really is your contact information. You're identifying the number of families that you plan to include. And we mention that because while the tool was designed for programs to be able to use with all of their families, it's not mandated. And so, for example, if a program wanted to just do a random sampling of families, or if they wanted to just use it with a certain number of centers or grant delegate agencies, whatever, you have the prerogative, and you're just paying for those families, the number of families that you're planning to use the instrument with, and then you just designate who's the person who will be your system administrator when you purchase the software. So that is a quick summary of the instrument. And I would love to have a conversation with you and field questions. I see that we have a couple of questions that have come in already. And let me just take a look here. Okay, so the first question asks about the distinction between the PFCE framework and the other family needs, other family services. So to be clear, which is a great question. So we absolutely appreciate that there are a set of family needs that are addressed in, whether there's in the PIR or, it could be need for emergency services, shelter, and so forth, that are separate and apart from family engagement. So this, and that you're all doing that kind of work already. So this, to be clear, this isn't replacing anything around other kinds of family needs. This instrument specifically addresses needs identified in the PFCE framework. Now, you're very welcome when we have samples, and you can take a look and kind of compare, match up what your instrument, or what you're using currently, how that would relate to the PFC2I. My hunch is that because I appreciate there's many different kinds of kind of homegrown instruments, and this everyone's kind of got their own take on it. We had a poll that I was thinking of running past you, and this question is actually making me think we should do this. I'm going to launch a poll here, which would appreciate your giving us feedback on what you're currently using for PFC assessment. So, basically, some of you I know have homegrown resources. There may be some kind of a commercial product that you're using. Some of you may not be using an assessment currently for PFC, but would love to. Thank you. People are responding. We've got seven responses so far, and the numbers are growing here. So I'm gonna just give folks another 15 seconds to finish this poll. All righty, so we will go ahead and close the polling. So just to report out what we've got, what we saw here is that 30% of our respondents have homegrown assessments. About 36% have some kind of a commercial one. 9% not currently using assessment, and then about a third, about 27% are doing something else. So we're clearly all sort of in different places on that. This instrument was developed really with the expectation that recognizing where OHS is going with their requirements, and how we're expecting that, with the new monitoring system, that they're going to be looking for pretty strong data and something that's going to be helping measure performance. All right, so we've got several more questions here, and let me just respond. So the next question is, could NHSA just give us the instrument so we could input the information into Child Plus and run the data ourselves? So this, it's a great question. So what we have developed here was very intentionally a kind of a valid and reliable tool that requires basically ongoing support and analytics. So by having folks, up until now, most people have been using some kind of an instrument that the data never gets shared anywhere outside of their agency. So you know how your program is doing. You may or may not know how reliable that information is, but you actually don't have the ability to compare it to anybody else or to get any kind of broader technical support. The purpose of this thing is to be able to let programs, to give them the kind of support so that every year the data is a little bit stronger, the analytics is a little bit stronger, and we do that by having a cloud-based tool where everyone's using the same instrument. The reason why if someone were to just take these questions and say plug it into Child Plus, you wouldn't be able to have that level of support and validity. Now, the second part of this question was about being able to compare it to other data. So this, I mean, we've actually looked at the interface with other data sets within Child Plus. In order to do really effective cross-tabulation of data, you generally have to pull data out of Child Plus, and so we don't see this as being any more work to be able to kind of cross-tabulate. And then with the support that we have around analytics, we think programs will be able to fairly easily compare, say, child outcomes with, family outcomes or whatever, cross-comparison. So there's a question about the number of assessments and tools that are provided for families. So part of the purpose of this instrument was to actually create one instrument that addresses all of the PFCE framework issues. So we're hoping that this is going to be actually reducing the workload on programs. Now, we're also open, and it is part of what Kate Klingesmith is going to be working with us on this next year, is if there are other key questions that you see beyond what's in this instrument that you think could actually make your work easier if they were brought into this tool, we'd love to explore that. That is something that we're really open to over the next year. Next question is, how do you know how many parents to purchase for when there are multiple siblings in the program? Great question. I should clarify, we're really basing this on the number of families. So we're not holding programs to a precise number. We're really operating on a good faith. So because we know when a program, you start out the year, all you can do is you can estimate approximately how many families you're going to be serving. So if you're planning to serve all your families, that's a good approximate number. If you're planning to just do a partial sampling, you can use that number. But we're really, we may refine this after the first year or two, but for now, just give us the best estimate when you're purchasing this. So I think that is all the questions that we've got in so far. I don't know, Fernando, if there are others, anything else we should address at this point?
No, it seems like all the Q&A questions have been answered. If any of you have any additional questions, you feel free to contact the email address on the screen, or reach Region 9 Head Start Association, and we are more than happy to address those questions to Rick and NHSA. So at this point, I believe that's what we have, unless you want to add anything else, Rick.
Well, actually, I did want to mention that, thanks. We are going to be presenting on this at next week at the Fall Leadership Institute, NHSA's Fall Leadership Institute in DC, but we'll also be presenting at the Region 9 Head Start Association upcoming Parent and Family Engagement Conference in Hawaii. And we have a session scheduled for November 2nd. So we'd love to be able to talk with you in person there. But in the meantime, please feel free to shoot us an email, go to our website. But Kate or I or Victoria at NHSA would love to chat with you if you have specific questions about the instrument. And just want to thank everyone for taking the time. I appreciate that the work. Sometimes it feels like the education side of the house at Head Start gets all of this attention and focus, and we've so many kind of rigorous assessments and resources and class and all this get invested, and we really are committed to helping to support the family engagement, family services side. That we really believe that as we are in the next several years looking to improve child outcomes, that PFC is going to be really instrumental, and want to look forward to partnering with many of you in the years ahead. So thank you. One last comment, I guess we're going to close this out, is we will be, I think, making a PDF available of this to Region 9 Association, and would be happy, I'm sure Fernando and Ed can share that out with folks.